A million stars to self-empowerment. A universal message for those who seek empowerment through peace and harmony. History and Habits, Book 1. Written by Abdul Fattah Muhammad. Narrated by David Vandermolen. Dedication. Dedicated to my lovely grandmother, Miss Alice Kelsey, and her descendants, till we meet again. Annotation. An inspirational message originating from personal, past, and present experiences, thoughts, and ideas aimed to motivate self-development. As authentic motivators, the author describes over 10 scenarios, narrations, and examples from multiple walks of life. They are referred to as stars of empowerment. The literature creates a developing mindset, enabling the reader to discover secret stars of self-empowerment from within, and it provides best star experiences from the author's perspective, and shares a message with the reader in discovering means of maximizing self-potential. The author uncovers the fact that self-empowerment is best done through pure peace, passion, and harmony. It becomes a common message from one pure heart to another, and raises the question, what is the main star that is waiting to be discovered in each of us? Introduction. We all have ideas, thoughts, and feelings. How well have we kept count of or examined ourselves in relationship to these personal components? Literature and information on self-development have affected us on a large scale. Much of what we have read in our libraries is from early century writers, particularly what is being taught in academic centers. I have consideration and appreciation for that nature of literature, to say the least. Yet, it is hard for these non-contemporary writers to relate to the information and technology we have today. And, as many things have changed so much over the years, it made me think, would the information presented back then be the same in our time of modern technology and digital evolution? Could there have been more or less added to the knowledge shared in the earlier literature? In other scenarios pertaining to the majority of self-development information, the authors who wrote the documents did so after finding personal success. But why did they not publish much literature while they were making their way to the fame and glory? Was there not any time to depict the situation in writing? Or were they a bit too occupied to state what they were doing as it was taking place? Of course, I am sure that uncertain outcomes played a role in some cases. The author of this literature is going through most cases as they are taking place. There is no name recognition or prior publication to prove perfection or high numbers behind these series at all. My reason? We are all the same in some shape or form, and we are the way we see ourselves first. The value is in each one of us, and how we deal with it is where we distinguish ourselves from one another. Have we realized our resources, strengths, and talents to a level of full capacity and appreciation? As we have these strengths, we can do whatever we aim to do, one way or another, and feel good about it, no matter what. This is my angle and position of interest. These are my thoughts, ideas, concepts, beliefs, and feelings. They are of some doubt to myself, but what they are not is without any value, truth, or merit. Capturing these ideas is itself a success and great accomplishment, because without that angle, I would not be able to share what has worked for me as you find the best to work for you. Finally, no one is perfect. We have all experienced setbacks, without a doubt. We have all witnessed and experienced some form of success in our lives. The information presented in these series aims to focus on how to maximize our positive experiences and make us succeed in the best way that works. The software pertaining to personal empowerment is in the making to help in the modern days. I would love to have my readers' involvement in that product once completed. As an educator, I aim to convey ideas that reflect my thoughts, knowledge, and experiences. These narrations have helped me in some way or another in developing my life. This information has been a great benefit to me and others in the past, present, and will be in the future. Concepts which were being taught at higher levels of education throughout our society also are cited in relation to our common lives. Personal empowerment begins with self-awareness and independence. Personal development has several components. Traits, which include personal and interpersonal resources, are essential to succeed in any industry. Expertise and ideas which have been generated over the period of our lives. As our lives leave one phase and enter into another, so do our goals and objectives. We as human beings are acclimated to the ways of ourselves and the understandings of each other. We all can relate to the fact that there are many routes to reach our goals in life. People have found different ways to generate resources, habits, and personalities. These abilities have contributed to the achievement of long and short-term success. Many individuals struggle in determining what exactly it means to obtain their goals in life. What makes the process of success easy for some while challenging for others? Sharing knowledge and personal experiences, I have found the means to give you information that makes sense from my own expertise. The scenarios mentioned in this book I have lived in most cases, yet I am currently experiencing other concepts even as you are holding this volume. I write with the aim of establishing the validity of those experiences, and much of the success is based on how these words will provide a positive contribution in our lives, mine and yours. The information contained in this document has several personal components and resources as mentioned. Ideas and personal thoughts are of some impact to this work, and I have true love and understanding for many of the statements noted here. The impact of this passion makes me live beyond my sensational means and do what no one else has ever done before. True passion is the key to ultimate success in whatever a person wants out of life. Finding enthusiasm within you is finding yourself and what you are really about. The examples contained in this work are real experiences and identify how I intend to raise myself and loved ones beyond poverty, dependency, and destitution. The motivational inspiration to counter self-destruction and counterproductive activities comes from within. I hope that by reading this book, you will do the same for yourself and your loved ones in the best way possible. Concepts prove to work only if they can be placed into action. They must be examined over a period of time. The interesting thing is that concepts and ideas don't test themselves. People must take their theories and identify the nature of their results. The scenarios must be compared by how they are applied and produce the best results. Experiences are conditions and situations we face in life at one time or another. While knowledge and education are based on our own ambitions, needs, and wants, the human being is always searching for something no matter what he or she has already, and very few people understand what they want or why they are going for it. The wisdom it takes to see life through is vast. Such information to understand these concepts is broad and has no bounds. Those who don't have wisdom struggle to understand why life has a necessity for knowledge. Below lays information I hope will guide those who have pure knowledge and help them apply prompt application of the information. I also hope that those who are delaying their search for education will find ease in obtaining their true passions. We have all had many examples of stars in our lives, from getting stickers in preschool to having ideas that were our keys to success. In reality, we have had millions of stars, but have only needed a few all along to succeed. Quote from the author: I have been very mindful of world politics and affairs prior to the first Gulf War in 1991. It made me reflect on worldly affairs with a conscious passion until today. Never has the knowledge of the world been enough for any one party, and I truly believe that this book is due to those exact visions, reflections, and passions. History of the book. I wrote this document as the idea of a personal development and empowerment software or platform which came about in a meeting with my friend and business partner, Mr. Latif. He and I felt that creating a personal empowerment software would help a person succeed at finding their desired fortune. However, Mr. Latif suggested that I write a book and describe the philosophy on which the product would be based. We both felt that, additionally, the information in the book would add value to our business model. So I agreed and set my mind to write an instructive book for the purpose of building the software the very next day. As an MBA candidate and business-minded individual, I discussed various tactics to personal development at length with my associates. There are many people out there in need of a deeper understanding of how to develop oneself. Many young people have a lot of time, but do not know what to do with it. Others simply lack a decent local and global education. Among the most compelling elements affecting people's development, from Africa to Europe to Asia and the United States, is a lack of a clear vision of oneself. This leads to a high drive of dependency on others, while having a low sense of freedom, independence, and self-reliance. Many of my speeches and conversations were about finding alternatives to these issues in development. I thought that finding a clearer vision would free many who depended on others rather than themselves. And having a more focused understanding of my purpose in life and what I am about has helped me along the way. It is the very common idea of finding oneself. I felt that everyone needs to find themselves. My heart and mind kept thinking about what angle would be the best approach, and my life appeared to have greater value than ever before just for contemplating the subject of personal development. This all took place in Richmond, Virginia, in the United States of America during the month of June 2018. I asked my partner what he thought would be a good-size book to introduce the idea of self-empowerment and development to people all over the world. He thought 600 words or so a day would be a great start. Facts are that, if done consistently, the book would be a great size after a short period of time. I will get into that idea later, though. Being out of school on break at the time, I thought writing that amount of words was an obtainable goal. Feeling confident at what my last MBA class required of me, 1,500 words per assignment, I compared it to having breakfast. I could do better than that. In fact, I committed myself to 2,000 words a day. This goal of 2,000 words a day seemed reasonable. I figured writing 600 words in the morning, 700 in the afternoon, and the rest at night would be perfect. It went well at first, when that was all I had to do during the day. But, as mentioned, that did not last long at all. And, as it turned out, I got what I bargained for. Describing past, present, and hypothetical situations which have taught me a lot about life. Using thoughts, ideas, knowledge, experiences, and common wisdom. Feelings and concepts which have made differences in the outcome of my life and those around me. I felt the love and calling of this project was meant for me. I had it all in me, waiting to share it with the world, at least anyone who cared for it and would discover the information or be discovered by it. As I was continuing on with my writing, my MBA classes resumed after the 4th of July. The logistics of writing a book took a serious toll on me as I gained momentum and found reasons to expand my information. In fact, by late September, despite completing the initial draft, I had made over a dozen rewrites. These changes ranged from subdividing the entire book to the amount of words in each chapter to the way I would promote the book. Experiences in any long-term task have no bonds, I kept thinking. Reflecting over memories and experiences from over 30 years became more meaningful to me. I committed the rest of my life to writing and found myself to be that passionate about the material as I talked more and finalized 1,000,000 stars to self-empowerment. My partner and I both have been working in the startup fields of business. We make a great team and have learned to aim for a common goal and succeed by any and all means necessary. He concentrated on IT, information technology, while I primarily focused on the business perspective of our respective agencies. Many of our thoughts have materialized, while many others have not. There have been times when I have let go of things and have not seen them through. But some things not so much. And other ideas I have dealt with in a way that makes it impossible to turn my back on ever. These views are common among the human race. There are experiences or ideas which never leave us, while others do. Chapter 1. The Human Habits. Our habits are the makeup of what we get out of our actions. People give into many causes for various reasons, and in many instances they get only a bit of what they put into them. If only a person could see that the best type of passion to have is a desire to be better toward everyone and everything that they are involved with. That person always will see the true benefit in what they do. Finding ways to show love and obtain success triggers healthy habits. Positive behaviors bring positive results, while negative habits bring negative results. Impacts of positive results continue to grow. Likewise, the impact of negative results develops in a person as well. When the human being realizes what the benefits of those results are, the individual generates habits for better success in his or her own way. In other words, to grow best habits, it takes recognition and understanding of who a person is and what makes those habits good and beneficial. In many situations, I have found my best habits to be those which have given me peace of mind and a good feeling at heart. My bad habits do the complete opposite. The first habit is one that I like and adore: consistency. As a business developer, I needed to create a large clientele basis with several requirements. They had to be local, personal, and suit the criteria for the business. In other words, they all needed to be aware and willing to take part in the business in some way. This criteria was not the most difficult aspect because plenty of people knew me in a personal sense already. But how could I get them involved in the business? Another question was, how many people do I need to find for the business? And what would be the plan in doing so? Both questions baffled me, and I thought several times of seeking advice on the matter. It was a non-profit business and would involve events and functions at a lower scale. But how many people would find a reason to partake in the events? And what reason could I present to them? I thought long and hard over the course of time. Finally, I realized there were no restrictions in terms of a timeline, and creating the clientele basis was for the long term. If I could constantly represent the organization in each community gathering and business setting, then the impact would eventually show. I adopted a contact method system, which meant everyone's contact information would be saved. Every time I met someone new, or even thought of someone I knew, my task was to get their phone number on the spot. I would then call their number right away, and they would have my number. Then I would save their phone number, and in some cases their email address. My aim was to save at least 5 contacts a day, which would include any incoming calls I did not recognize. It was a constant effort for my business, completely legal, and with a significant payoff as time went on. At one time, I looked into the amount of contacts I had and could not believe I had so many. I then stopped to think of anyone I knew whose number I did not have. It was quite interesting to gather all of these numbers. The next consistent step I took on was greeting message and awareness. I would send massive text messages to everyone. Taking away the group icon, each individual felt the message was for them alone. The message would read, "Greetings to you and your family and friends. I hope this message finds you in the best of conditions. Just wanted to invite you to the following event." I would then share all the details of the program. Similarly, in cases of death or community emergencies, the style of communication would be the same. The first year, I must have communicated with over 300 people this way alone. That number increased each year as phone features modified to cater to my convenience and efficiency. My contacts were in the thousands after just a few years. The important aspect of this experience for me was that it was very effective in getting people on board with the non-profit organization's agenda. Although attendance was not very high, word got around that something was going on in Richmond. At times, people would call to get information about some event we were hosting. Many community members would say there had been little going on in the area, community-wise, prior to then. But after this means of business development, I started hearing less of that statement. Consistency brings the feeling that something is taking place on a continued basis. I would have cold calling days along with the massive text message days. If a person did not respond to my text message, I would follow up with them over the weekend to see why. It was more of a concern call, meaning I was keeping in touch with the person, which in many cases meant a lot. People would thank me for calling and checking on them in most cases, and that empowered me. Because I knew I had touched someone in a positive way, I also found more to do with myself and filled my time up with producing positive results. Having a very good response to the level of understanding generated a stronger relationship. Because of this means of constant communication, information about the community was being shared with me as a leader or point person. And in the following chapters of this book, other examples will be given based on the outcome of this trait. A person can excel at whatever they are doing by being consistent. Although the initial action or contribution may seem minor, consistent long-term effort is bound to be successful. I love to challenge myself with this habit. I know that putting it into action can be difficult at times, yet the payoff is certain. And that's where I am today. Yesterday, my understanding was different from this point of view. I could not see the value in being patient over an extended period. Aging has something to do with it, of course, but so does personal understanding, wisdom, and experiences over the course of my life. How I became consistent is not as interesting to me as why I am consistent in what I choose to do, and that is always better in my mind to understand, the why. I am consistent because it makes me feel and think of success in everything that is going on. At times, I say to myself, I did not give up. I was consistent. And that goes for hard times and good times. I have in the past given up in good times, and that has caused disaster, because it was not the right moment to claim victory, and things changed against me. In many cases, I am sure individuals think along the same lines, while victory was not assured, but only assumed. So how long will I be consistent in this endeavor? Till the end of time or the end of my life, whichever comes first. That is the nature of my passion and the commitment for this habit. Being consistent these days is a powerful element of a developing process. And no matter which of the following points you take from this book and how well you apply them, never give up. Be consistent in whatever you do. The one who gives up is not considered a winner, because winners would not be winners if they gave up. Thus, make the best of each step you take and look forward to being consistent with every moment of your time, along with all the assets and resources under your possession. Another very important habit is having a positive outlook on things, no matter how bad they may seem. During my lifetime, I have had several near-death experiences. The first 3 involved drowning. I also got shot in the abdomen and was in the hospital for over a month. And in every situation, I can say that having a positive outlook helped me through. Being positive was the first and last thought that ran through my mind, and because of that, I kept a positive outlook in every situation the entire time. The gunshot to my abdomen occurred while I was in my car, so my thoughts ran like this. I could drive being shot and get much further than on foot. People do it all the time. And the bullet is in my abdomen, not my chest or head. I have to keep driving as long as I can, away from the shooter. My stomach was on fire, and it seemed to be getting worse. But where was the blood? I looked and could see real blood, like I had never seen before. It was dark red and definitely coming from my stomach. But it was not flowing as I had expected, like in some movies. It can't be too bad, I thought, and maybe I can go home and sleep off the pain. Don't think so, my second mind said. This is a gunshot wound, and you were severely injured. You have to get to the hospital as fast as possible. People die from these, and you are no exception. Had I really gotten shot? Did this really happen to me? Why was I still driving, and how was I making the driving decisions if I had really been shot? My outlook was good, I thought. If other people survive these wounds, then so could I. It was really painful, though, and I could still hear the echo of the gunshot in my ears. The discomfort went outward from my stomach, throughout my chest and lower belly. I was sweating, and I kept changing positions. I stretched the seat out to where I could barely see over the dashboard. Keep driving, I thought. Is that a better feeling? I asked myself. It's in the direction of stomach, but my legs feel different now. The rest of my body feels very hot and numb. That's okay. It is a way to know that we are alive still. Just keep driving. You are doing good. Are you falling asleep like in the movies? Can you place your finger on the spot to stop the bleeding, or maybe take out the bullet? I'm awake, not like they show in the movies. But having my hand on top of the area is good enough, so I won't be putting my finger in there. It hurts even more now, though. I'm going to make it to the hospital. I have to. They will know what to do, and I can rest once I am there. My thoughts initially were about getting rest, and there was no better way to get sleep than at the hospital. I don't think I can take any more of this pain. Not while driving, anyway. How far are we from the area of the gunshot? Several blocks away, at least, and now I hope I can use my phone. I realize that the battery is dead. That means we are to die too. No, silly. It was dead earlier. We never charged it. There is someone on the phone in that parking lot. Get in there. I drove right to the curb and attracted the person's attention. Call 911, sir. A man has been shot, I yelled. Excuse me, he said to the person he had been talking to. What did you say, sir? Referring to me. Call an ambulance, I said. Man down, I have been shot. Firefighters came first. Ambulance was there next. When the police got there, I was already in the ambulance. Can you tell us how this happened? A white police officer's voice asked. I gave the impression to the negative as I could hear the emergency response team state, Sorry guys, we have to get him out of here now. They placed the oxygen mask on my face as I said, Sleep at last. My rationale was very positive, I thought. From the time I could feel myself driving the car, I was repeating words of faith. There is no one who has the means or power as Allah, the one who created the world. And He is trustworthy, all-sufficient, and all-capable. From the time of the gunshot till the time I made it into the ambulance, I maintained a positive outlook. Those thoughts and conversations with myself were my saving stars. They kept me going till I made it to the next point of extraction. And that's what empowers me to keep going all the time. Relief will reach us, or we will reach it. I used to have a tough time with this one because I had a temper and was impatient. I know arrogance played a role too, looking back now with time and age. Having a positive outlook takes me beyond any moment at hand because it always clears a path for me mentally to look for better options and opportunities. As in the scenario mentioned above, it also makes me appreciate what I already have, and this is important for me to keep doing. I love to look at what I have and say to myself, it may not be the best, but it is not the worst. As I recalled that I had been shot in the abdomen, not in the face, chest, or the head, so I felt blessed in a way and could remain positive. Earlier, while in junior college, I learned that focusing on strengths gives better results, because concentrating on pertinent points allows the positive results to overlap into areas of deficiency and reduce a person's weaknesses over an unspecified time frame. As individuals, we learn good things in life and tend to let those experiences fade away. At times, we may lose track of our achievements. This next habit is called focus. This trait is connected to discipline and is important for personal development. What can we say about the one who focuses on doing something and stays committed to getting it done? The following experience will give some perspective. Once I struggled while studying for an accounting test, could not understand the concepts of accounting. The teacher, Mr. Evans, was not available to help at this point. He felt that he had explained enough of the principles to the class at the beginning of the course, and further instruction was of no use. I remember him saying, "Stay with me here, everyone." It was all new to me at the time. That was my first accounting class ever. It was also the first time I had an FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, agent as an instructor on a weekly basis. Although I must mention having been approached by agents from the FBI for something they would consider an interview. I had lived many years outside of America and kept an older passport book at the time. There is always someone with the same last name or first name as mine doing something they had no business doing, as the FBI agents would claim. So, in 1996, after I tried getting a driver's license at the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, they visited my work and interviewed me. They said they wanted to make sure I was who I said I was. And on a number of occasions returning from overseas, I would be approached by FBI agents. I was fine with it and played it safe. As my grandmother would say, "Fata, you do as they say and don't give them any reason to do something stupid." She's right, even though many people don't understand the wisdom in doing so. But I do. Till today, I'm not sure what Mr. Evans did for the FBI, but he spent much of his time explaining tax laws to the class. It was distracting for me, and once I remember someone asking him about the amount of general time for a certain minor crime. His response was, "More than you want." He repeated that several times. A young, charismatic, clean-cut Caucasian man, always well-dressed. I think Mr. Evans felt his explanations were as neat as his appearance. Whatever the case, he simply did not feel the need for additional clarification at that time. I have to admit to being intimidated by this instructor. Maybe the FBI was finally watching me full-time to make sure I was who I said I was. Mr. Evans being a federal agent and me having the last name Muhammad, I hoped we would forget each other, and the sooner the better. Not a chance, though. He would not stop calling my name in class, which made me even more concerned. In any case, it was getting closer to midterms, and I had really been struggling. I almost gave up on the intense accounting course altogether. It must have shown on my face, because a classmate of mine from a different class spotted me in the courtyard. I think he was from Ethiopia, and his first name was Muhammad. "Muhammad, are you okay?" he asked. "What are you studying here?" "Accounting," I said, "and it is horrible." "Let me see," he said. I showed him my classwork. "See, you have to do what is being said. Pay close attention to the description of the amounts. Look at the type of entry it fits into, and do as they say. Stay focused, too, because at the end, everything has to balance out. This is your amount. Does it increase the balance of the company's assets or reduce it? Remember, everything has to mean something on paper, and as an accountant, it is your job to say what that means on whatever sheet you are working on." "Accountant? I'm no accountant," I replied. "Just think you are," he said. "It will help you focus, and you need to do that in everything you do." I took his advice and stayed focused as much as possible. Even in class, I stopped thinking about the person teaching and more about the information he was giving. I began to see a pattern in the accounting entries, and by the time finals came around, I had done all the homework assignments and tutorials Mr. Evans had assigned. I learned more than the accounting principles that term. I learned that staying focused empowered me beyond my fears of the FBI agent and the tax laws he kept going on about. Instead of him intimidating me, I intimidated him on the final exam because he could not believe I was doing the work. In fact, he even came to where I was seated and frisked me. I knew he was surprised with my abilities, and that was a star moment for me. Staying focused on what you picture yourself doing is crucial to achieving your goals in life. As my classmate said, picture yourself being what you are wanting to be. Later, I found that concept to be a great way of developing one's success. Picturing yourself as an employee or a business owner actually influences a person to do what they imagine themselves doing. It will take absolute focus, but the more you can stay focused on your future, the sooner it happens. Why do I find it important to see things in a positive way and maintain a good outlook? The real reason is that it helps me concentrate on my personal development, and in so doing, it makes the objectives along the way all worth it. I can tell when I have lost focus now. It has become a star habit of mine from the time I took my first accounting class till today. As I have worked through my MBA, I have managed to use the same tactics of focus and consistency through every accounting class. The concept has gotten me great grades, much better than the first grade I got in junior college. Applying these concepts was harder for me back then. It takes time to change. In the next chapter, I will go more into changes and its attributes. But from a military perspective, as mentioned in The Art of War by Sun Tzu, one should know their strengths and weaknesses. I have decided to focus on my strengths more than my weaknesses, which keeps my weaknesses from having a negative impact on my personal development. Focusing on the negatives and neglecting the positives generates negative results. Being aware of your weaknesses and understanding what threats can generate is one thing, but placing emphasis on negatives, causing the positives to remain the same or deteriorate, is not an option for me. I choose to see things from an angle that makes good things count, while bad things not as much. Bad things will happen, of course, but who says it will be forever? And why should I allow what I have no power over to stop me from doing what I have the power to do? While you consider these words, say to yourself, things must be good right now because I am able to read and think about what I am reading. And doing so with complete conviction in everything that you do and say will bring a positive outlook in life, because there is someone somewhere who doesn't have even that to say. Two other habits which I find very important in developing oneself are open-mindedness and having a sense of ease. Don't let anything stop you from thinking bigger and bigger each day. Get out there and say, I thought this, but now I'm going to see it all the way through. Let your mind do its thing instead of putting limitations on its abilities to think, reflect, explore, and contemplate. I developed these habits during my first martial arts class. We practiced all semester and were tested at the end of the class for our final grade. The test consisted of forms, sparring, and breaking wood boards. Many of us were familiar with the importance of being able to break the wood boards, but I had never had the opportunity to practice it. When I first watched it being done, I thought it would be a great challenge to do, especially as many earlier students failed in breaking the boards. They were very thick and could not be broken without massive strength. But I thought the students were stronger than me, which explained how they had no problem breaking those boards. I thought there had to be a trick to it. Perhaps I had to hit the board in the right place. As I thought that, I heard a board being broken by a student. Yes, that is it. If I managed to hit the board in the center with full force, it would break. Not too much later, I was called up for my testing. As mentioned, the test usually consisted of various components, but my mind kept thinking of the board breaking. This was actually the very last of the 3 sections: forms, sparring respectively, then board breaking. I had not considered being so warmed up when it was time to break the boards. I have to be open-minded, I thought. The process is standard, and we must have needed that warm-up to help break the boards. As my thoughts kept running through my mind, I forgot what approach I had settled on. But look at it, and hit it as best you can, I said to myself. I don't think that was the plan. I think I am supposed to hit the board and yell, just like the other people have. So you think it is how hard you yell? Maybe. Opera noise breaks glasses. This is not the opera house, and these are boards, not glasses. So what was the plan in breaking the boards? Being open-minded about the whole thing, I guess. Yeah, but before that, we had a physical plan. Now it is time. The boards are right there in front of us. I don't remember the plan, but let me see. Kia! My hand landed on the board, but did not break it. I felt some pain as the instructor said to try again. I tried a second time, but my hand met the same result. My instructor, Mr. Prophet, approached me. Abdul, you have the right idea, but your vision is off. You have to see your hand going through the board. See yourself crushing the board. Don't focus on the board, but look through it. Look at the board as something that is in your way to whatever is beyond it. Then strike. This was the trick that made me a star at breaking boards. It was a way to find ease in the aspect of milestones. I was open-minded about doing something for the first time, and then I was taught how to do it with ease. In other words, when I attempt to do something challenging, I look beyond that goal, or I see it as just being in the way of whatever I want on the other side. $1 million, for example, is hard to imagine when that's all you think of getting. But when you think of $1 billion, then $1 million is just along the way. We can't get $1 billion without getting $1 million first. Nothing is impossible. And if you think of it, then it will become a reality as long as the right elements are in place for the product intended. Allow your brain to think and contemplate on the necessities beyond the necessities. Try to be free from mental restrictions. People use the term can't, but this creates a lid on the brain's capacity. It also creates breakdowns in effective communication, which results in negative energy. I find myself telling people who I teach and coach never to use the term can't if they want to succeed in life. Shutting the brain down is not a habit of successful people. The word used to open the mind to possibilities and opportunities is how. It makes the brain think, and if placed in the right sequence, planning and execution become clearer. What makes this such a phenomenon is that the body goes along with the way the brain is programmed. If the brain feels positive, the remaining parts of the body feel good as well. The heart particularly responds to how well the brain sees and understands the situation at hand. If my heart is light and free of grief, then it will communicate to my brain that everything looks good, feels good, and will continue to be good. So the takeaway from these tricks is that the brain needs to be open and at peace under all circumstances. Over the course of my life, I have gathered much experience about what success feels like. What I have found is that true success always relates to a personal passion and provides a sensation of pure relaxation, making me feel better than anyone can imagine. I was successful in overcoming my injuries and shortcomings. That made me feel a new level of success and a sense of empowerment. Examine your feeling of success, and you will find that it comes alongside an activity that makes you relax, even if you're breaking a sweat. Enjoy your success without costing too much money or time. Find something that puts a smile on your face, some steady hobby, habit, or talent. Such activities increase our chances of personal development and empowerment. Life without enjoyment and relaxation can be fatal in itself. There has to be a way to relieve stress and anxiety from within ourselves. It is always good to have a talent or a function that you are passionate about, something that either consumes your time in a positive way or makes you relax and feel at ease. This function must provide you with a sense of joy and a feeling of accomplishment for you to reflect on. Finding out what that talent is helps in many ways. Some people have been able to make a living with their talents. In other cases, many have used it as an outlet to reinforce their positive emotions. In either instance, have a sense of passion for your talent. It's a powerful component of success and a star element of empowerment. To have a passion in everything that you do is a very important trait. Many find their best moments in life through times of strong, passionate feelings. For example, I loved reading large amounts of literature at one point in my life. I drove a cab at the time and found myself reading or driving. I changed jobs, however, and could not find the time to read anymore. The habit of reading large books faded away, and I switched to deep thinking instead. Again, my function changed, and the passion for deep thinking shifted. So, I took up a master's program, which made me do both. The only problem was that I had to read and think about what I was being instructed to study. Yet, once that program ended, I started looking for a different job again. When will I get to the bottom of what I am going to be about? How could I have fallen for such a maze? I asked myself. I looked at the positive perspectives in my career changes, getting more education. And I remembered the words of a former superior of mine who said, "You can never go wrong with more education." But now I enjoy reading again and find ease in reading what I like to call big kids' books, better known as magazines. I like to call them big kids' books because they are short and have big pictures in them and many short stories or articles. The right set of magazines are very informative and contain articles written by some very good people who share their success stories and interviews for the readers to reflect on. I found myself reading a magazine in Morocco which was written in 3 different languages. I read the English first, and, having the ability to read French, I thought I would practice my French. It was a great moment and a star feeling because I could understand the French by reading the English. I also felt good about my reading abilities in French, which were better than I had expected. I recall gaining interest in reading as a young child, partly due to similarities mentioned between magazines and kids' books. As my brothers and I gathered around to listen, our parents showed us the pictures in the big books as they read the stories. I still read to my children the same way my parents read to me as a child. The articles in the magazines are similar in size, yet of many varieties. I can choose what I want to read about. So reading is always easy and a way to help in self-development and empowerment. Khorram is a young student of mine whose parents are from Pakistan. He spent the summer of 2012 in the HSNA's first summer program. I think the best part of Khorram was the meaning of his name, Happy Joy. Actually, it was a relief to learn the meaning of his name because most of the summer that year was anything but happy or joyful. Yet, when he came to the program at the time, I said, "Now I have happy joy." But what I liked the most about Khorram was how he would illuminate like a lamp when he realized he had learned something new. He actually reflected happy joy, Khorram, and had an "I got it" expression and movement along his entire upper body. Thinking about it today, I hope everyone reading this book will have happy joy in doing so. A star feeling and a pure sense of self-development. Another passionate hobby of mine, which costs me next to nothing, is to take a walk. I love to use my body in connection to nature. As I walk, I can feel the wind or sunshine and think as much as I like. I listen to the different types of birds' songs, see the sky, and reflect upon the earth and all it bears with appreciation. Again, it's a blessing because there are those who are unable to do even that. But I find peace of mind in walking and breathing the fresh air while thinking of positivity. A long walk is a great workout for me at times, and a strong body leads to a strong mind. Keeping the body in shape helps keep the mind in shape, I once heard one of my brothers say. Consistency provides life to any plans of success. While remaining positive and focused makes the plans of success survive with longer life, being open-minded creates greater opportunities for us. And finding a sense of ease during the process often is due to the passion of the personal talent. Such are star elements of empowerment and personal achievement. I love finding ways to understand my strengths, and that is why I will succeed at whatever I set my mind to, one way or another. There were my mother's words before she died. May the Lord's mercy be upon her. Chapter 2. Developing Stages. I have looked at behaviors within myself and identified certain traits that have helped me along the way. In terms of my personal development, I like to begin by evaluating the behaviors that are winning my battles or making me stay afloat. This is the initial stage of success I find within myself. Various habits are refined or modified, while others are eliminated. I must mention replacing or eliminating our certain habits first in this chapter, because knowing what these habits are and how to deal with them has enabled me to replace them. It is very important to care about what makes us stay strong, energetic, and healthy as human beings. Essentially, we must enable these developing habits in order to produce our success and stars of victorious achievements. In the following example, the essence of this concept of understanding what it means to replace bad habits with good ones and how to succeed in doing so will become apparent. Replacing a very common and counterproductive habit is my star scenario in this chapter. Smoking was the habit in question, which I had many years ago. I would inhale and exhale the smoke, feeling a minor intoxication of some nature, as do many smokers. But I thought it was cool when I first began to smoke. My peers all smoked, and I wanted to feel part of the crowd. So it started as peer pressure, one may argue. But one day I said, "Take full responsibility." It was my desire at the time, and looking back at it, I am thankful the bad habit is gone. Getting back to my experience as a smoker, I remember from the age of 9 being all too curious about young smokers just a few years older than me. I actually began smoking prior to being a teenager. However, as the years went on, I began to dislike the habit very much. And I remembered being shown a picture of 2 hearts by one of my science teachers at the middle school back in the Gambia. The picture showed a smoker's heart compared to that of a non-smoker. The memory never left my mind, but I kept smoking well into my adult years. Smoking had grown on me. An addiction to nicotine was a very bad habit, and I never liked it as being a part of me. Of course, smoking calmed my nerves, as some would say. Smoking made me feel in control over a few things in my life. In particular, I could choose for myself how and what to smoke. I started by sharing cigarettes with my peers, maybe half a cigarette here and there during my junior years. But as an adult, I found myself smoking packs of cigarettes each week on my own. The smoking habit also cost me much more than the monetary expense associated with it. I could not sleep well at night due to physical pain and the mental effects of smoking. Many nights I had to give in to the addiction and smoke on and off through the night. Besides, smoking carries a very bad smell. I found that I had to smoke away from people who were non-smokers, and I even found myself lying at times when asked if I smoked. That bothered me a great deal, and I noticed that the color of my face, lips, and fingertips stayed dark. I did not like it, but as many will admit, it is easier to quit a job than to quit smoking. At least, that made sense to me. This was no exception either, looking back then at my state of mind. But I knew a change was necessary for me to feel better about myself. I tried different things to help me stop smoking, but what kept me smoking was when I felt I had done something big or had suffered a major setback, I would rush for a cigarette or whatever and smoke away. In my mind, it was a need at the time. I was addicted to smoking, and that bothered me. It almost reminded me of what Napoleon Bonaparte said about champagne. In victory, you deserve it. In defeat, you need it. My ideas grew tiresome as I thought over and over about how I was going to stop smoking. I would think about quitting as I even smoked and reflected upon my dark fingertips and stained teeth with dismay. Finally, an idea came to my mind on how to make the change. Quit for a minimal time, cold turkey. No more patches, no more nicotine gum, and no more thinking about how to quit while smoking. A change for the best was imminent, and it would take place now. I decided to set goals that were reachable. They would be made in timely increments, which would be set to a higher level of success each day. I also made it a condition that I had to appreciate the change no matter what the case was. Being appreciative of the progress in getting rid of this bad habit made lots of sense, even if the progress was minor. As the days went by, I would be content if I managed to not smoke at all that day. One day after another, I abstained from smoking and showed myself gratitude with a cup of peppermint tea. I had that cup of tea with a feeling of doing something great, which I did. Another day without smoking, and the feeling gets better and better, even till today, after many years of acting upon the decision to quit. This experience taught me a lot about positive change. A person may see the need for the change, but will take time to adjust to the nature of it. I found myself thinking of giving up smoking without acting on it for some time, despite knowing it was needed. The habit must be replaced with a more positive and beneficial hobby or practice. There needs to be a reasonable strategy to change, and appreciation of the progress must be felt. In many cases, change occurs too quickly or too slowly, which is a reason people care less for it. Such scenarios tend to demoralize the positive outcome or the change process itself. I like to use the formula of realizing the purpose and nature of the change that must take place, and then outlining the steps that must be taken. Add to that the predicted time frame for the change to take effect. Putting a positive outlook and consistency into the formula is very important. It will be a winner. Then follow up with decisive execution in minor victories with the long-term goal defined. Always stay focused on the ultimate goal from day one. A plan must be clear, and the possibilities and outcomes need mental precision. As I take action, I abstain from looking back, only forward. We start now and do not stop till the very last phase. We initiate the change and will remain in the process till its conclusion. This is part of having absolute commitment in what you want to do with your abilities. Your plan must take place with consistency, devotion, and dedication. Execute your ideas with positivity, open-mindedness, and a pure sense of ease. What will bad habits be replaced with? Well, in my instance, I decided to use food and lots of water. I would spend extra time preparing fruits, such as watermelon and cantaloupe. Strawberries, peaches, and pears were my favorites too. In addition, I changed the company I frequented if they smoked. I chose not to be in the company of those who did not discourage me in indulging in the bad habit either. Many think long and hard about change because they expect it to be difficult. But if people could see change as easy, they would be more receptive to the idea. Planning comes at some cost. When one understands that concept, he or she has less surprises from the change. The element of surprise is very common in the military as well as in courtrooms, hospitals, sports arenas, and other professional or commercial settings. Being surprised at the last minute can change the tide of the situation. Using the ability to deal well with change initially improves one's chances of success. Once I had a function planned at the community center in Richmond and had been telling everyone about it for some time. A week prior to the event, I got a call from the chairperson of the board for the center, Dr. Nazir. "Is everything okay with you?" he asked. "Is anyone trying to push you around?" "I'm fine," I responded. No one is giving me a hard time." "Well, let me know if anything changes," he added. "Sure, no problem." I thought hard about the call for a minute, but could not figure out the reason for it. Only an hour had passed when I received another call. "Brother Abdul Fattah?" "Yes, this is he." The caller identified herself as a school's vice principal and mentioned there was a conflict in the schedule with the event I had organized. Till today, I cannot remember her name. "What is the conflict?" I asked. "You have an event at the same center on the same day we intend to have an awareness for the school. Can you change your event day?" "I can assess the situation and call you back if that is okay." "Yes, but we won't be able to change our time or date," she said. "Oh, I understand," I replied as we ended the call. The hours were close, but not entirely conflicting. The audiences of both events also were in no way conflicting. They both were about awareness of education and development. A change of date would not be necessary, but timing was a different story. The school's event would conflict with mine by at least a half an hour. Their event ended at 6 o'clock, while ours was to begin at 6 o'clock. I could see there being an opportunity after all. We would use our time to a minor delay. It would take 30 minutes to get our venue in order anyway, which we could do while they used the same amount of time to wrap up their event. I could also see their crowd being larger than ours. This meant there was a chance of using their larger audience to insinuate to newcomers that our event had lots of people before we even started. People could see that the center was crowded, and the crowd could have been there for either event. If the idea worked, the first program would fill the center and stay during the entire duration of the second event, I thought. When I called the vice principal back, I stated that there would be no conflict. They could have their event as planned, despite the fact that we had announced our event long before the date. She was surprised to hear me say so, and I only added one simple request. Please mention that the second event will be held at 6:30 instead of 6. She assured me it would be done, and we parted ways on the best of terms. I often thought about this experience and how things could have gotten out of hand. Had I held on to the fact that we had the first right in using the center and were backed by the board's chairperson, I could have simply said no and not dealt well with the change at all. That would have turned a bad situation into a worse one. But both events turned out to be great successes, and people stayed for ours for two reasons mainly. It was announced that the second event would take place right after the first one, and more people were informed of that and simply stayed to know more about our event. Another reason was that our event served dinner, and since people had been there for a while already, many just stayed because it was easier to eat than leave. Calculating things in a very tactical way creates a vision for opportunity, I said. Now we have everyone right where we want them. The process of evaluation says to consider what is involved and the effects it will have on the matter in question. Not only does that apply to the example presented above, but also reminds us to look beyond the components that we control. Consider what is within our control and what is not. How can either affect your efforts in a positive or negative way? I have learned while working on my MBA that risks are a given in everything that we do. In fact, project management has a very popular method to weigh options. The outcomes and possibilities of a project or product are analyzed in a risk analysis method known as SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I referenced the importance of understanding strengths and weaknesses earlier. Now, let's look at why and how they are analyzed. Threats are crucial, like opportunities, and have more to do with external factors than internal ones. The entire concept of knowing one's strengths and weaknesses gives room for understanding what to expect of good or bad. As people plan their paths in life, they often fail to count on certain changes happening. Unexpected situations occur and catch them completely by surprise. So, the initial phase is preparation for change and the process of evaluation. Expect to make the necessary changes and understand the cost in making those changes. A good way to see the changes for how they will affect you is by organizing yourself. It's a great trait to have whenever you cannot see or feel good about where you are. And, in my mind, part of being organized is being clean, thorough, and orderly. Lack of organization in one's life results in low morale and confidence. Take whatever you are looking to do and imagine it wasn't organized and you were not thorough or tidy in its presentation. The chances of you getting others to support your idea, or even yourself as an individual, are low. That's one reason why the military demands orderly habits and discipline. For the troops to be confident and have a high level of morale, the military goes through great measures to train soldiers in an orderly fashion. In fact, in every military operation, there must be some element of organization which enables a sense of ease and comfort among the ranks and boosts the level of morale. When I find myself cleaning and organizing my surroundings, good things happen around me. Many of my friends and associates have attested to the same. Cleaning my car and taking it to the car wash makes me feel I am driving a newer vehicle. But then I take the time to tidy up my home, including the kitchen and bathroom. Next thing I know, I feel like I am not only in a new home, but also working out of a new office, because I work from home. This helped lead to getting new business. So being clean and orderly helped develop my success. Another very important component to the developing phase of success is proactiveness, or understanding how to be flexible and adapting to circumstances in difficult situations. Being proactive and flexible can make a big difference in how we deal with things. I try to take whatever is coming my way as a gift or an opportunity, making an effort to go with the flow of things to whatever level I can. Having this mindset from the beginning helps me adjust to changes and challenges. With these thoughts in mind, I feel and expect the motion that things are only getting better. I once took the approach of being reactive, the motion of acting based on the nature of a situation, whether the alterations were good or bad. Reacting to the changes took a toll on me. My mind became very distracted and stressed because it was too much intake. When I first traveled to Africa in 1982, being proactive came into play. It was tough because I didn't have things such as air conditioning where I stayed, or ice cream as we do in America. These are our safe havens from the heat. So imagine what it was like being in the hottest of environments and not having these luxuries day or night. It was tough, and at times I could not sleep. I used to count the days until I could go home and get back to my comfortable temperature controls. It only got worse thinking about it, because for the time being I was still in Africa. Things were very different, and time was not moving as fast as I'd hoped. When are we going home? I kept asking. It even made me feel worse when I kept getting the same answer. In a few weeks. I realized then that time goes by very slowly in that part of the world. Some say it is because the sun is in the sky longer than in other places of the world. I thought the heat was just baking us, and it was taking its time to make sure we were well done. Once I heard that people have more to do in that area of the world pertaining to pure needs, and there were less mountains, trees, no snow ever. And that was the real reason it was so hot. All things combined, it created a heat beyond what I was used to. We are closer to the sun, was another opinion that emerged as to why it was so hot. It did not matter the reason. How would I get through the next few weeks of this heat? Nights were the worst because it stopped me from sleeping. Who could sleep in such heat with so much sweat and humidity? I started considering what everyone else did in order to sleep better. At least I could try to find a way to make my nights easier for me. At first, I found my answers in staying up late each night, conversing like everyone else. But I thought there had to be a better way because I was used to sleeping at night. But I noticed something else too. The natives always showered before going to bed. That seemed like a good idea because there was only cold water. So I tried showering before going to bed each night. It helped, but I would still wake up after a few hours in the middle of the night. Then I would shower again and take a damp towel to bed with me. My nights got better, and I would smile as I fell asleep each night. This was my initial phase of being proactive on a personal level. And star ideas to better nights in Africa. Proactivity has been my model in dealing with people on a daily basis. We tend to have different behaviors and mindsets. I found this to be the best way to overcome all types of barriers. It has worked for me when I say about people, love them and let them do as they please. I make this statement with true conviction and have no firm expectations in return. This way of thinking has truly paid off. Being proactive is emphasized in the project management studies. A good approach to have, in my experience, is accepting the various components as they are. Things can shift, and my personality may need to adjust to the new ways and circumstances of the changes. Many of us find such theories to be somewhat advanced and hard to relate to, but if adapted in the early stages of development in a mature manner, we will see it for what it truly is, a star habit for our success. Behaviors we should try eliminating at some point are those which make us reactive. I feel being reactive is essentially a means to dead-end results in many instances, particularly as it generates panic, negative decisions, and ill feelings. As very often we take certain risks in our lives and adapt with a reactive approach, we experience the unpleasant impact of the reactive trait itself. I once decided to dive into the Atlantic Ocean and swim to what seemed like a close island of Gorée, not very uncommon for youngsters to do even today. A very good description of a reactive example took place then. After a few waves, I was no longer swimming with the waves, but found myself frustrated by them as they kept coming. In fact, I ceased to be complying with any aspect of swimming altogether. And this is the definition of a reactive outcome. I was rescued and taken to the police station. Why the police station? Because they have a law stating that if you are rescued for not being able to swim, then you don't belong in the water and should be arrested for getting in the ocean. On Goree Island, everyone can swim. Their inhabitants are called human fish because of their swimming abilities. At one event, they hosted a swimming marathon which extended from Dakar, the Senegalese capital, to Goree Island. It takes a good hour or so to cover the distance by boat. Yet, all the youth made it home safely despite all odds. Upon understanding their stated law, I appeared dysfunctional in accordance to being proactive and was released on the spot. Yeah, something is wrong with him. He doesn't know any better, the chief of police agreed. That was an earlier account of my near-death experiences, which I will elaborate on later. Replacing reactive behaviors with proactive ones is how I choose my swimming places these days. In other words, I look for the situation in which I can see myself being more proactive than reactive at all. Give me a swimming pool the same length, and I will make the swim, because I will be able to take breaks occasionally if need be. In fact, if I had my own boat to watch me in the ocean of that same island at that same place I was rescued, I could take breaks as I wanted to and sail some of the way. A star idea to see through one day. Similarly, from a military perspective, being proactive can involve getting the enemy to fight you on your terms and not his. As we know what and where our strongest points are, we can use them according to our desires and against the enemy's weaknesses. Sun Tzu. While being proactive in a sense that the enemy has to be engaged, but not acting upon what they have, yet what we have, makes it also proactive. It is a star tactic of overpowering the enemy. Immaturity versus maturity. Immaturity versus maturity also can be examined as we consider traits and behaviors which should be replaced. People in my life who sleep most of the day and play games all night accomplish less than they should. They have a very poor sense of responsibility, which leads to minimal amounts of progress. But there is a saying that all progress is good, even if it's just a little bit. Meet Mr. Babar, a young 18-year-old student from Georgia with a good heart. He has a charismatic appearance and is vocally talented in Quranic recitation. Everyone who has ever listened to his style of recitation knows without a doubt that his vocal ability is unique, to say the least. His charismatic personality makes people smile. Despite such qualities, Mr. Babar likes playing little kids' games with 4-year-olds. He doesn't like to do his homework and skips class every chance he gets. Babar loves playing basketball, video games, shopping, and going out. Mr. Babar invests his time and interests in the components of immaturity. These include, but are not limited to, 1. Excessive sleeping. Excessive sleeping, which may feel good, particularly when the weather or air conditioner is conducive to sleeping in. But whoever gained high accomplishment from sleeping all day without valid purpose? And why should I sleep more than what I need if I am in good health? It may be nice to sleep certain times of the day or night, but what can it solve to sleep half the day and play most of the night? I have asked this of Mr. Babar on numerous occasions. However, this habit can serve well for one who uses it to meditate, contemplate, or involve themselves into deep thinking. In other words, this is a habit that I have seen to have a positive outcome if modified correctly. I have made more references to this aspect of the book in the 3rd series, Chapter 8, Spiritual Impacts. Clearly, in certain medical instances, doctors will prescribe bed rest, which is different from one just wanting to stay in bed all day. Earlier, I mentioned being hospitalized for my near-fatal incident. After my release, I cared little for being awake. Dealing with the physical and mental pain of my injuries was a problem for me, and so I slept as much as possible. Looking back on that time, I can say that I have gained more from being awake, and staying up most of the day rather than sleeping does me much good. I didn't really need the sleep, but rather didn't want to face the reality of being in the recovery condition I was in. I explained this to Mr. Babar. You don't need that much sleep. Try to use that time to improve on your studies and skill set, I would urge. Most people who sleep all day are of the same mindset. They don't want to face whatever situation is at hand. Sleeping it away only allows them not to be awake for the consequences. It almost makes the person dodge their responsibilities, and sooner or later, that all changes. In some cases, a person who sleeps a great deal could be dealing with depression. Traits associated with immaturity are very counterproductive to individuals and those close to them. In so many instances, frustration and animosity have prevailed after some time. Because the habits of immaturity generate laziness, the lack of ambition and creativity come alongside them, but that is not all. For now, let us explore the disadvantages of being immature, lazy, and irresponsible. 2. Irresponsibility. I have found those who are irresponsible to be very ineffective at producing promising results on a continued basis. Immature people also tend to be somewhat careless. Certain traits lead to their lack of passion and urgency pertaining to important matters. Such individuals have poor motivation for exigencies such as school, work, savings, personal development, etc. In assessing people's trustworthiness, their maturity level plays a significant role. Mr. Babar's inability to produce better results was due to his attitude toward homework. Responsible people complete their assignments. But after teaching Mr. Babar for 9 years, he has yet to surprise me and do his homework. He did confound me with the following statement. "You should know I am not self-taught," he acknowledged. "Great. Now you can tell me how to change that, sir," I replied. Like Mr. Babar, individuals who have poor traits such as immaturity, laziness, and careless attitudes find themselves in constant difficulties. They lack understanding of how to rid themselves of the impact of their behaviors. Simply put, the mature person has a better outlook on important matters. I can expect certain things to materialize being in the company of mature people. People of mature personalities have attentive eyes, and women often rank higher than us men in that regard. I remember having my younger cousin Aisha telling me to grow up. I said to her that I was older than she was, to which she replied, "Only in age." I had to think about it for some time, and then I made various observations. I noticed how older people spent their time in life reading, writing, and conversing about important matters. They spoke about topics like finances, education, social welfare, and world news. Later on, I saw the difference at work, where mature people proved to be more focused and punctual. Maturity enables a person to learn skills better and express themselves with precision. When you see yourself slacking and sleeping away from all your time and talent, be ready to change if you want better for yourself. You have to be a star in your own success. So, how do you categorize your condition? In the initial phases of one's personal development, it comes down to how you see yourself daily, and how your helpful habits are refined or modified, while the habits that hold you back are eliminated. Can you love you for you? And what are things you can do to make each experience and situation even better? There is always room for self-development and personal empowerment. What are reasonable things to start with on your path to empowering yourself? Beginning steps are simple and could be very easy to do. Consider how much easier your empowerment will be as you get rid of bad habits and replace them with good ones. These are stars of empowering yourself. If you love yourself, then help yourself succeed and don't expect it to be without positive change. Chapter 3. Finances. Monetary means and economic exchanges are the makeup of our finances. How we look at these components shape our financial successes. Once my wife and I shared a 3-bedroom unit. It had 2.5 full bathrooms, a kitchen, and a dining room. The downstairs consisted of the living room and half bathroom. The upstairs had the master bedroom with a full bathroom and the other 2 bedrooms separated by the 3rd bathroom. As we went our separate ways, I realized there was extra space all to myself. I found roommates willing to cover 75% of the cost of the unit, and I would pay the remaining balance. My cost of living was cut by 75% that year, and I started considering other economical exchanges people had been involved in. Food, clothing, and shelter are all of economic value and can be improved in order to gain financial stability. Years ago, I would commute to my first corporate job site where I worked as a caterer, but heard stories of co-workers who drove from long distances, carpooled. But after just 4 years, they managed to gain financial independence. These corporate employees were from India and had the common goal to explore the opportunities here in America from day one. My Indian co-workers worked in the company's technology department, so their salaries were very good. They carpooled to save money and later invest into various business investments. Typically, people miss out on savings when they don't work together. But the co-workers formed a mastermind alliance, the coordination of knowledge and effort of 2 or more people who work toward a definite purpose in the spirit of harmony. Napoleon Hill makes mention of this in his book, Think and Grow Rich. These corporate employees used to pay an average of $20 each day to travel to and from work. There were 5 altogether, and they spent $100 traveling individually every week. Once they came together as an alliance and decided to travel in the same vehicle, it reduced their gas expense by 50%. Each worker would give $10 of the trip to the person driving once they began commuting to and from work each day. In return, they could all sleep, talk on the phone, or do some last-minute office work during the ride. The driver would make an extra $30 for driving that day, unless one worker drove one way and the other drove the other way. After the first year of working, they used the money from their gas savings to shop together for food at a wholesale retailer. In other words, they did this as a financial plan for food, clothing, and shelter. The money they saved on gas was used for food, and the money they saved on shelter by sharing a unit was used to invest and buy clothes on sale. It only took them 4 years to each have a business of their own in town, so their commuting days were over. But they stayed in close touch and helped each other with their business costs as well. They all went into real estate and gas station businesses. This was their plan from day one, as mentioned, and this is my star scenario for this chapter. They came together as an alliance and made their dreams a reality. Many people have the knowledge and understanding of how money works, but there is more to financial education than just how money works. Pay very close attention to how you are using the money you have under your possession and its circulation. Every step of how money functions makes a person wonder, was this really the case all along? Why did I not see that before? Could I have been financially independent had I obtained this understanding of money several years ago? At least these were my questions, and they led me to develop better money habits, which were rich in practice and in theory. These money habits made sense to people who would listen to the logic or had already been in the financial field, individuals such as accountants, economists, financial planners, and bankers. We could all see the same picture and talk about it for days. Then I had protégés or clients as a consultant who would listen but needed clarity on some of the concepts mentioned. But once a person took the information and put it into practice, results would show in a reasonable period of time. Financial independence is achieved from having the knowledge and practices of a financial expert. Applying them with precision and having consistency in a positive way generates financial assets. These assets make more money with the money that already was generated. So the person who has the financial assets does not need to make more money from an additional job in order to survive. They only need to increase their financial assets in order to get their financial value to increase. Another very important example to help a person save money is the habit of controlled spending. In my experience, eating out is a big expense. I thought about things I liked to order if my family and I ate out on a weekly basis. My number one dish would be Italian spaghetti. We could order pizza at times, but we all love to have seafood. The eating out bill would cost us over $1,000 a month if we spend between $60 and $80 each time we eat out, and we did so 4 times a week on the average. This was a surprise to me, and I decided to cut down the cost by learning to make those dishes on my own first. Then my wife taught my daughters, and we took turns cooking. So no chance of tips for the restaurant waiters, and we still ate good food. It was homemade. If I spent my money at the grocery store and cooked the dishes myself, the good thing was it lasted longer because it was more on the plate. We also saved gas going back and forth to the restaurants. It all added up. Again, what are the consequences of the money we have in our possession? How can we use the patterns of our finances to save us time and cut our cost of living? In the information shared below, I will provide additional vital scenarios of this concept. Experts on this topic agree that how we think about money makes a big difference in how we manage it. In my opinion, finances is a very broad topic which needs further examination, and I hope it will become easier to elaborate on the various elements of finances to people who struggle very hard to understand them. Yet, the way to my financial mind is really clear because many people view finances from a money perspective alone. Financing does not refer to paper money alone, but actions, concepts, assets, personalities, and resources that increase wealth. An important concept about money is having the right mindset, one which will generate ongoing money tactics that best work for you. And these are your star financial generators. How can your financial practices provide more life to your income? How can you make your money generate more money? There are uncommon means when it comes to money which have yet to become practical to many of us. But the common angle to money and money secrets deals with having enough of it to budget, save, spend, or invest. Is there a way to somehow put earnings into good use to make doing any of these things possible? It is important to at least have a clear philosophy of the type of money you care for. What do you want to do with your money and why? Do these reasons make you happy and satisfied to keep your belief system afloat? Can you be a money lover or money worshiper and deal with the popular saying about money, money is the root of all evils? Having an idea about what money is going to mean to you and why it has such a meaning in the first place is the first step in financial planning. As planning in general always answers the why and how, likewise, we should always fix in our minds how our money will increase. Why do we need the money? And what are we going to use the money for to begin with? In the past, I have lost much savings and exercised poor financial management due to the lack of proper financial planning and understanding of money. The key to understanding is through the quest for knowledge or learning through experience. Many of us have credible people in our lives who guide us and tell us about financial affairs and other matters. In such cases, we should take as much advice from them as possible and put it into practice. Our minds must take on the financial management task mentally, managing money, focusing on what increases our money potential, and learning the benefits of seeking money and having money as needed. Money conscious. Money conscious is a mature term which experts use to refer to a good way to deal with money in general. Another term to consider is financially conscious. After all, finances are a part of our lives in this century and have been for a while. We use money to satisfy our daily spending and expenses. At least that much everyone agrees upon. But many will say they just need enough to retire, while others will say they only want enough money to buy the finer things in life. Another perspective is that having just enough money to make ends meet is fine. And there's always the popular saying, I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. I want enough money to give to all who are in need. How much money is that? There has not been an answer to most of the financial questions posed here thus far. Practically, though, I can say I don't know the answer to that question. What we do know is that it equates to some specific amount, and that amount must be defined at some point. But the initial amount of money necessary needs to be budgeted. Financial success comes at a price, and if we have the right tools to pay the price, then we can move on to other aspects of life. So, budgeting is hard to do for some, but we must make it a habit to take advantage of. The good news is that it can be done using our sense of ease through our passions or talents. I have a passion for sports and deep thinking, and I find ease dealing with both aspects of my life, for example. A good habit I have found is incorporating my finances into the hobbies I am engaged in. The nature of doing this has a sense of fluency for me. When budgeting, I like looking at my pluses, or what I have coming in, first, because I want to say thanks and show gratitude for my income. That builds my momentum, and at times it appears to be more than I expected it to be. I like feeling good about the fact that I have a steady income and connecting it to the positive aspect and the stronger angle of my resources. Income is really important, and there has to be a main source for the financial base. I remember feeling a bit worried about money when I was getting married. A mentor of mine, Dr. Ralph, said, "As long as you have an income, everything will be all right." That was a star statement coming from Mr. Ralph. It has lasted for me over 20 years. So, looking from that perspective, pluses appear to be on the up and up. My brain tells my heart all is well and will only get better, so there is no need for financial hardships now. When the next part of budgeting comes into action, I see it as an opportunity. The first thing I like to do is consider the necessities, things like rent, utility bills, food and gas. Bills that must be paid if I am going to live in the same place with the lights on and food on the table. What can I get rid of from this list? There are taxes, insurance, credit card bills, internet bills, and school fees to be paid at any given time. But how much of those services am I really using? I know many of us have unlimited internet usage, Netflix bills, and credit cards. But would we lose our lives if we didn't have those extras? In other words, are we even using them at all? Could we find a better use for our income rather than wasting it on things which only give us easy access to entertainment? Some things must go, and that means time to save by narrowing down the non-essentials. This means I have the chance to save more than before by having cut costs and spending on such items. I would not know the amount of this savings unless I began to budget and balance my finances. Budgeting helps me understand what my earnings are and what I really need to spend them on. Many people find budgeting very difficult. They think it must be done by sitting down with a calculator at the kitchen table. Some budget with their spouse, with whom they may have little financial activity in common. Often, their bills are separate, as they may shop at different places, or they may have different ways of looking at finances in general. My wife and I work with the system we have. I earn, provide, and do the finances until there is nothing left to budget. I like to inform her of what I am doing, too. She earns her own money, which she spends as she sees fit. I love it, and she knows that I do. She often thinks that I have more than I actually do. But in reality, there is great value in being financially conscious or money conscious. And for me, it means a constant increase of monetary value and potential. Emotionally, I sense riches and fortunes in myself because I am conscious about my income, assets, and resources. Value has many areas, and in order to see an increase in value, simply pay close attention to its pluses and minuses. Then find ways to increase the pluses and decrease the minuses. Try budgeting when you get your paycheck or income. Realize that you have this same amount every week or every 2 weeks, and in some cases every month. Some of us have income which comes in every quarter. Plan your finances each day until you become fluent at budgeting. Once you get used to budgeting, you may change to a weekly routine. Again, stay positive, consistent, open-minded, and proactive about it. Money will become part of your process going forward based on what I have experienced. There is a personal financial statement you can write out which has 3 components. 1. The amount of money you want to have. 2. What you are willing to do to get that money. And 3. What you will use the money for once you get it. The idea of having a personal financial statement is to help develop your money consciousness. This enables a person to see themselves get the money they want at the time they want it. As the statement is to be repeated often each day, it helps the person see themselves having the amount of money they want. Budgeting is effective after understanding your sources of income. Afterward, it is important to then try building on top of those sources of income. The point is to find ways to increase your income potential or generate many streams of income. Creating various streams of income is the next step when it comes to financial planning and financial tactics. Can we make income generators on a daily basis? Could we have daily sources of income each day? Can we set our minds to having unlimited sources of income? The self-made wealthy always have various income streams. They have planned many income purposes for their financial needs or wants. One stream of income for expenses, one for savings and investments, and one for spending. For those of us who are still struggling, let's say we just have one income instead of 3, we must learn to save 15% of our earnings for emergency situations while budgeting the rest of our income and living below our means. It takes discipline and some concentration along with changing spending and saving habits. But the important thing about this is that it brings the best part of you out. You are picking up a new skill which makes you free from living without planning for emergencies. And I am here to tell you that it is never too early or too late to start. Another recommendation when it comes to money is the power of giving to those in need. You may not think of something good happening to you as you do good unto others, but consider the individuals you are helping. They may be able to help you in some way, but not be aware of it. Giving to others is something which has a high return. I think of it as being in that giving end longer and will have more capacity to do more in the future. Again, as stated earlier in the chapter, I want to have enough money to give to those who need it the most. And what goes around comes around. It is very common to grow a habit that becomes a good fit, as the habit was a good trait to begin with. And that is how I see giving. It is always better to be on the giving end instead of the receiving end. We have another pitfall as it relates to financial management in our financial affairs. It is known as debt. There are high interest rate credit cards, lines of credit, long-term mortgages, payday loans, and processing fees on these financial products and services. Waste not your time and money on these financial products, particularly if you have an increase in debts and not enough coming in to save or invest. Borrowing more has gotten me deeper and deeper in debt. The saying I have learned to remind myself of is, if you find yourself deep in a hole, then stop digging. Debt makes me think harder about spending on my personal needs. So I always try to eliminate the debt as quickly as possible and stay away from getting into more debt. I also investigate rebate programs on my spending potentials and plans that could benefit me on my other bills, which will suit my financial goals. I learned once that I had been paying $15 extra on my phone bill for data I could not even use on my phone. The service was the AT&T Wireless, but the phone was from Verizon Wireless. This had been going on for 9 months without my full inquiries. I brought the situation to AT&T's attention, and they credited me for the difference I'd been paying. I also asked for the plan to change, which made it $15 less. The money they credited me was not sent to me, but remained on the account. However, the service stopped billing me altogether as I traveled and returned months later when I still had a credit on the account and did not owe them anything. This is a typical situation you may be able to have with any number of your bills. In this case, I have not paid my phone bill for almost a year now. The money I used for that bill, I have now learned to save or put to better use. If I see myself getting into debt, then I must make sure that it is for some clear necessity and not something I simply want. Once I incur debt for necessities, then it is justifiable to borrow to pay for something I need. An example of this is with my credit card and the electric bill or car repairs. I only have one running car, and the electric bill has a cutoff notice. Paying on those are a must, but I make a note to pay off those balances before using the card again for anything else. Sometimes I like to call up the card company and see what they are not telling me about my credit card. I was surprised to see that they were willing to give me a lower interest rate, but I wanted to reduce my spending risks even more, so I asked about rewards programs. They placed me on a cashback plan, which gives me some money back when I use my card. That helps, and I can do my part in making small necessary purchases and paying off the balance before any interest occurs on the card. But there is something pertaining to credit cards and other lines of credit which deals with establishing credit in our financial lives. I had to learn such lessons when I first returned to Virginia in '95. You must establish credit in our society because they will not allow you to make large purchases without a payment history. The exception is having cash or other financial assets on hand, and that practically goes for anything, a house or car or even renting an apartment. You must have credit history. There are some people who will give you a car without pulling your credit, or let you rent a room in their home without checking your credit, of course. But that won't show on your credit report, and in case you think of buying a home, real property, or new vehicle, the payment history will not show. Establishing credit. Establishing credit is easier than you may think, as I once consulted a credit repair startup company. If you have good references from those who have good credit history, like a relative or close friend, then they can place you on their lines of credit. Your score will increase, and you can establish a good credit history that way. You'll need to be diligent, of course, as they may run into issues and ruin your credit, too. So you will need proper consultation for that nature of transaction. But it really has proven to work, particularly if you had no credit history to begin with. The question to be answered is, why do we need our finances in proper order to begin with? We need to secure ourselves and our loved ones from financial hardships and unnecessary financial risks. Now, how can that be done? By planning your financial means and resources according to proven methods of financial management. The mindset is the first important resource of this process, but then it falls on budgeting. This includes organizing your income and changing your poor spending and saving habits. Once these steps are accomplished, we can aim at being consistent with the idea of being financially independent and build our streams of income while reducing and eliminating our debt. Consistent ways of saving will come with that effort as well. As we budget, we save, and this takes discipline and understanding of how money works in order for it to take full effect. But that typically calls for a good deal of patience because it has to grow on a person. But learning about it while putting the information to good use is really key. In the second series of this book, Chapter 6, Personal Behaviors, I will be talking about patience. So please be patient. Another great way I found to save on the little I make is in the following example. My bank account is set up to take out $1 per card transaction and place the funds into my savings account. I used to transfer it back to my checking account, but lately I have decided to leave it there and see exactly how much per month I could save with these transactions. And as I did so, I felt the positive impact on my savings account. I aim to increase the funds going into the checking account through other sources of income. But what makes it into savings stays in savings. These financial tips are very popular, yet What is not so popular is your own personal secrets about money, unsure and unexplored, even to yourself. Look at the money you have made, the amount you have saved, and maybe the money you have kept in your car or tucked away at home or in your office and have never used. Then consider how much money you have given to small companies that provided you with service you did not even use. Even the meal and coffee you got from somewhere other than your own kitchen must be considered from an economical perspective. How can our economy survive without us spending? And of that spending, what can you do to spend less, pay yourself, give more to others, and save for a bigger and better opportunity each day going forward? Take a good look at your financial affairs and develop a better financial attitude each moment you can, and deeply contemplate over your finances. Know that if it is for you to have something, then it is up to you to plan on getting whatever that is. But once you do your best, then it will happen at its own time and in its own condition. Just have a good feeling about what you have done for that to take place, because it will sooner or later happen. And build on top of your strengths to become stronger in your financial decisions. The decisions you make are based on your own financial understanding and ultimately define your financial condition. If Abdel Fattah had what he really wants in his heart, then no one will be without. This was my first grade teacher's statement about me after the death of my dad 14 years ago. This has been A Million Stars to Self-Empowerment, a universal message for those who seek empowerment through peace and harmony. History and Habits, Book 1. Written by Abdel Fattah Muhammad. Narrated by David Vandermolen. Copyright 2018 by Abdel Fattah Muhammad. Production copyright by Abdel Fattah Muhammad.